Welcome back to the third Dataloft video where we talk about the use of local property information to get you the listings in sales and lettings that you so richly deserve. 2021 is going to be a tough old market, and today we've brought together 4 leading estate agents from around the country. So they're going to tell us how using relevant and interesting property stats are getting them the landlords and the vendors they so richly deserve. And first up, I'd like to go to Luke Sinclair. And Luke, you've been talking about property data, and you've got a wonderful blog called the Leicester Property Blog. Why have you set out to use property data to attract vendors and landlords to you?
Because I firmly believe you've got to have something that is going to enrich people's lives rather than constantly be trying to sell to them, whether or not that's offering a valuation or arranging a viewing, to actually give them information that helps them make a better decision for the future. Because when it comes to that person ready to transact and engage in a valuation or a viewing, then you're going to be top of mind. And it is just that subliminal message, who is basically the Google of your marketplace. And if you can do that through property that's specific to them, i.e. Leicester, then they're going to come to you, and that's what we see as a result.
Okay, so you use Dataloft Inform. What information does that give you so you can push out to the punters?
So you've got some cracking information, such as just the generic house price inflations for the typical areas. So we have 3 key areas that we operate in, and in each area is very different, yet they're only 3.5 miles apart from each other. So someone in Wigston isn't bothered what's happening in Leicester. They want to know what's actually affecting them in Wigston, in their 3-bedroom semi-detached house or their detached house. And if you can make it relevant to them, again, it's all about relevancy as well, because that is then what's going to allow people to read it, and then you're kind of in tune with what they're thinking and what they want.
Good stuff, good stuff. I'd like to go to Michelle now. Now, Michelle, you really are the queen of the Lancaster property market, and you particularly use Dataloft in a particularly clever way, both on your website and in your social media marketing. Why is it so important that what Dataloft gives you as an unfair advantage over your competitors in Lancaster?
I use Dataloft a lot in my follow-up procedures with my valuation clients. Because every month the infographics are all updated. They're obviously embedded into the website, and also the monthly reports they bring out, which are again updated. And I can use those as a mid-month marketing point to send out to those clients who are both valued and on the market. Very good keep in touch policy. But I used Dataloft because I wanted to bring together what I call fluffy side of my marketing, with some data in there, being a university city. So Dataloft with the stats in there, I could combine the two together, and basically my marketing thoughts were to appeal to both the heart and the head.
It's really important that just because you consume data and write and in a particular way, that not everyone's like you, and some people like stats, some people like fluffy stuff, lifestyle stuff. And it's important that you give them the content that's going to attract people to you. Let's go to Kevin Parsons in East Anglia. Kevin, what do you use the Dataloft stats for?
There's a variation of reasons that we use it for. I mean, when we first set out with Dataloft, we were primarily using it on instructions. And converting those market appraisals into listings, because I think, as the others have said, that I think most vendors they're hungry for sort of stats and for information as to how much has my property gone up, and you can either guide them to say, well, it's not quite as much, or it has, or whatever the reason is. So I think we've found that it's been really, really useful on the market appraisals. But what we're finding now is we've developed that particularly for, I think, as Michelle said, that with market appraisals, where we've been out, and that might be in the last 2 months or even in the last 2 years, when we've actually sent out some stats which might be useful, we said they're useful for them, and we can drill it right down into their postcode. It does actually give some good feedback, and they think, they're thinking about it. Let's go to these people because they seem to know what they're doing.
if you actually look at the Property Academy when they do their home moving survey, and again, we talked about that in the second video, is that people want to use an agent who knows what they're talking about. And if you talk about property stats about their local town, and it isn't a case of just regurgitating stats, it's a case of comparing and contrasting what's happening now versus say a year ago, you'll become the local guru of the property market. Let's go to Ian White, well-known property commentary industry person. Ian.
Yeah, I think my views on it are that data in the form of sort of Dataloft or video or blogs or however people are going to present this information, it has two very clear advantages. One is you can constantly reinforce your local knowledge and expertise through pushing out through social media, through any form of hard marketing, information of value to your community. And therefore it's enabling you to connect with people that you may not have a connection with, whether it's your brand connecting with them or you as a person. You're creating some sort of identity within the marketplace, which means that when they're ready to transact, they pick up the phone to you. Then there's the use of it to, all of the agents that you've got here, that they're all prevalent in their local areas, that they're experts, but it enables them to provide evidence to back up their expertise. So it's not just a source to push out through social media. It's also a closing tool or an evidence tool to prove a particular topic of conversation, right, wrong, or indifferent. So for me, it's a two-way thing. It enables great people to prove their expertise, but it also constantly keeps you front of mind as a local expert in your community.
Because at the end of the day, sending people information that's relevant, interesting, and useful to them gives you the perfect and easy excuse to keep in touch constantly. And at the end of the day, we are in a people business, aren't we, Ian? And no one likes to be sold to, but by actually giving them something valuable, they're going to be attracted to you, aren't you? And that's where the Dataloft stuff comes in.
Yeah, look, I think the best method of selling is when the consumer has no knowledge they're being sold to. And of course, this is a very easy conversation opener. If you just floated a market report for Leicester, take Luke's example, here are the stats for Leicester, download the report here. The minute the client hits the download button, you've got a data collection point, you've made a connection. Even if the client doesn't download the report, they've still seen that you're the person producing it. So there is, on so many levels, you're making a very different interaction with your community. You're being of value.
Okay, let's quickly go to Michelle, then we'll go to Brendan and then Rory.
I also find in conversations with clients on a market appraisal, because I'm doing up my appointments virtually, just to be able to say to them, are you aware in LA14 all the primary schools are good or outstanding? Or just to point out facts like the download speed for broadband, which obviously is very important now for home workers, to be able to let that client know that we've got that information and we use that on viewing appointments has also set us in very good stead.
Okay, let's go to Brendan. What do these Dataloft reports do for you, and how is it going to help you in 2021?
I think, really picking up on what other people have said, it really does allow you to get under the skin and come up with some really interesting data sets that you can then turn into a compelling story. Because it's about, going back to the first video, it's about telling a story here. And for example, in our local market town, the market's been really busy, as it has been most places, with the exception of flats, which have been a complete train crash. But we can drill down into the detail and produce a graph that shows us from land registry data, so it's not estate agent nonsense, it's the real McCoy, and it shows from land registry data what the value of resale flats in OX28 has been over the last 12, 24, 36 months. And we can demonstrate to people that values have fallen. And so, again, going back to the first video, if agent A is trying to overvalue, we can say, well, actually, we can demonstrate that that is nonsense. And actually, if you really do want to sell in this market, then here is what's been going on. And this is how we would recommend achieving a sale for you. So, that's great. The other part of the storytelling, which is fantastic, is the ability to be able to compare. You're engaging with people in their local areas. And so if we can say to them, actually, this is Whitney, but by the way, Abingdon, another market town a few miles down the road, is doing this, you can compare and contrast. Suddenly you've got something that's interesting and newsworthy. And you know what? That gets picked up by the local newspapers as well. and you get free PR because they will publish this stuff. They haven't got time to write it. They haven't got the resources. They haven't got the data that we've got. And you can really make yourself a local expert using that sort of information.
Well, this is really important for any estate agents watching this who necessarily can't particularly afford Dataloft or actually want to do it themselves. The important thing is not to just dump data. The important thing is to compare and contrast. So if property prices have gone up by 5%, it's a lot easier if you say they've gone up by 5% in Whitney, but in Abingdon they've only gone up by 2%. And then people will say, well, surely then people are going to, do again, a question, put your hands up. Does anyone ever challenge you on this data? Because again, a lot of you're going to be worried that, well, where did you get that information from? Do you ever get challenged on the data?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, no, never.
Okay. Luke?
No, absolutely not. If anything, some people crave more data. They want more and more from you. So sometimes you find yourself becoming a right statistician, going into the depths of it. But no, people don't question us at all.
It's very interesting that I know some estate agents who used to put a report out on a particular day of the week, and then when they didn't publish it, people would ring up and actually say, where is it? I mean, Kevin, you've actually taken this data to the next level and actually done radio jingles and adverts that have driven people to your agency, and using the power of video as well, which, and then I know Michelle and Luke, we'll come to you in a second. But Kevin, I believe that your market share, you're number one at the moment. Roll the clock back 2 years, where were you?
Do you really want to know? We're about 4th and 5th in the town, and through obviously doing lots of videos, social media wise, that sort of people sort of say, oh, I saw your video, and just by pumping it out sort of incessantly to both local community groups as well as LinkedIn, Twitter, and some Instagram, but not a lot. We've just got a name for us, and it was actually the local radio station saw our Facebook post that invited us to work with them. So, and we now do this, as you say, we do the factoids as sort of as the radio adverts. Works really well, and now because we've been on the radio for quite some time, we're actually getting business through it. Because sometimes I think agents are very guilty of thinking, no, I'm not going to get anything from that or this. But just branding yourself and using that brand, it does actually work, and it actually gets you in people's minds.
Luke, you actually do a TV program on your area, and people stop you in the street and say you're the guy that sells property, don't they?
Yeah. I mean, I've had people. I was having breakfast in the gym, and the guy, I was on the phone to Stephen Brown of all people at the time. And he couldn't believe it. It was prospecting on steroids, where he waited for me to finish the call. And it was like, I've seen your videos. Can you come out and value my home? That was a £600,000-700,000 house right in our area. So again, it's just about repurposing. Again, Gary Vee talks about that. So just repurposing it, in whether it's blog format, stats format, putting it onto video, putting it onto podcast, just doing little bite-sized tiles, putting it out on social media with a bit of an explainer, or even if you want to know more, drop me a line.
Okay, Rory, let's go to you. How does it make you feel that these estate agents, you're helping them generate more valuations, more leads through the power of property data?
It makes me feel really proud, actually. I mean, that was the whole vision behind Dataloft and Forum, was to bring to life a whole bunch of relevant, bang up to date, creative, kind of different content. And two things come to mind just really quickly from listening to everyone. It's fascinating. Is the fact that often to try and get new customers, you need to reach them at various touch points. Some people say 7, some people say it's 10, some people say more. And what these guys are so good at is varying the content and using it across all of their marketing channels to give them the best chance possible of people noticing them, thinking, wow, these guys really know their stuff, and then putting them on their wish list of agents. And the other key thing that all these guys do really well is they're consistent. So you have to be consistent. You have to stick with this, using your reports, Chris, using our content, whatever it is, stick to your guns, do it consistently, and you'll build your brand and kind of build a position of trust. And these guys are brilliant at that.
Good stuff. Let's go to Ian White for some wise words.
I just really wanted to point out that in my career, I've either been lucky enough or unlucky enough to work through 3 very significant downturns. And what I learned very, very quickly is that don't wait for the downturn to over communicate to your audience. You need to be over communicating as a policy, even in the boom times. We have the advantage now of social media, which we perhaps didn't have many years ago. We have the advantage of email, which we didn't have many years ago. And it's very easy for us to be able to communicate. But obviously what things like Dataloft to do for you is give you that content with which to communicate. But you know, I genuinely believe we're in a busy market. I think we're going to be in a busy market for a little while to come. But at some point, there will be a price to pay for, you know, the current circumstances, whether that be through tax, lack of lending, whatever. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. But if it protects yourself now by starting to over communicate using your expertise, your knowledge, your data, your infographics, your videos, you're connecting with the local community, your social conscience stuff that you might be doing, your community sponsorships and everything else. But do it now. You know, do it now, do it regularly, do it often, do it more than you need to, but do it, and do it with venom.
The analogy I would use is that there's an awful lot of agents out there, rightly so, going out into the proverbial, this is a great analogy, going out there bringing as much wheat as possible whilst the sun shines. But if you spend all your time bringing the wheat in and not planting any seeds for next year, you'll starve next year, no matter how fat you are this year. And it's really, really important that you spend some of your time and effort, not necessarily a lot of money, to plant the seeds now, as you said, over communicate now. So if things do get tougher in 2021, and you know they should get tough, if not in 2021, probably 2022. You know, you're not going to have this amount of recession and the housing market not be affected. The size of the pie is going to get smaller. You need a bigger slice of that. So I'm going to go one final whiz through the agents, and then we're going to leave with Rory. But Kevin, if I asked you, would you what would you say to any estate agent thinking that they need property data? Would you recommend Dataloft to them?
100%. I think sort of, you know, you can sort of go around and sort of I suppose give a wishy-washy impression for so long, and sort of the people, the good clients know what they're looking for, and then what they're looking for is a good, knowledgeable agent, and the Dataloft sort of information gives that to you.
Definitely. Michelle, what would you say to any estate? Obviously, make sure they're not in Lancaster, by the way, or Morecambe. But what would you say to any estate agent who are thinking that they need property data to attract the landlords and lenders?
I think, first of all, the key is they've got to be willing to use it, and consistency is the key. One of the big things for me came from the Troy Malcolm course I went on of Stephen Brown's, where I identified I wanted to be Google of Lancaster and Morecambe. And a combination of Dataloft stats with the video training you gave us, and the fluffy blog writing allowed me to create area guides for Lancaster and Morecambe, but very postcode specific. And that allowed us with Dataloft to use the history stats, the house price stats, the school stats, the amenity stats, to create mini blogs within a postcode that was relevant to any property owner. They didn't have to be moving. To do so, there was a combination of the training I was given from Andrea in content marketing, how to write, and of course yourself with that video content, because I like to have a mix, as some people want to watch to consume, some want to read.
Good stuff. Thank you, Michelle.
Dataloft was the pin of it all, to get my information out.
The hub of the spoke. Right, let's go to Brendan.
Yeah, I mean, if you haven't got the data, how else can you get your message across? You know, it makes the most boring of people interesting because you've got that information to portray and just demonstrate that you're the expert in your local market.
Good stuff. We'll go to Luke, and then we'll go to Ian. Luke.
Well, I think the Home Moving Trends Survey says that the most important thing is confidence and ability and market knowledge, and just use people like Dataloft to make your job easier and to become that, like Michelle says, the Google of your marketplace that's going to put the trust into the clients. You can pull off the information from Dataloft within seconds. It's not minutes and hours of faffing about. You've got that information at your fingertips, whether or not it's on a tablet, printed format, and then all of a sudden you're ticking the 2 top boxes from those 35,000 people that were surveyed on the Home Moving Trends Survey. and that then all of a sudden fee does not become an issue. So you're then not having that race to the bottom as well.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Okay, let's have the final words from Guru Ian White.
I mean, look, yeah, of course, I would endorse Dataloft. I think the vast majority of my clients use it and love it and get great return on their investment. But I think the bit to understand is the great agents and all the ones I'm hearing here, they've learned the difference between the hunt and kill and winning business that's ready to be transacted now, and actually winning the customer 15, 16 months, 2 years, 3 years before they're ready to transact. Because if you win the customer's hearts and mind through data, through knowledge, through expertise, through behaviors, through great service, recommendations, it's all there's a whole mosaic. But if you can make the customer believe that you will be their agent of choice when they are ready to transact, the fee game, the price game, all the game that these other agents want to play, they're playing a different game to you, and you've already won. You've long won. If you can get the client in a position through your expertise, through your data, through lots of things, but data and expertise is a key component. Communicating before to the passive market is a far better strategy than focusing on the active market. The active market's great. Yes, you've got to be there. Yes, that's your today. That's what pays the bills. But if you really want to build a massive growth culture, you've got to be engaging with the passive market so you win them before the other agents have got out of bed, whether it's a landlord or whether it's a seller. And you can't do that without the backup of data and information and a process and a consistency in delivery. Can't be done.
Wholeheartedly agree. The bottom line is, and if someone says that, well, this is new fancy stuff, Savills have been doing this for 30 years. No wonder Savills are at the top of the tree, simply because they don't have a marketing department. They have a research department who talk about property market, give it to the newspapers, and the newspapers, as Brendan rightly said, haven't got time to chuck this stuff out. And people think Savills are just an estate agent, but they don't talk about themselves or how wonderful they are. They talk about stuff that interests posh people. Now, they've particularly chosen posh houses because that's where they earn more money. If your market's middle market, it's still a homeowner, and every homeowner is interested in the value of their own property. So use the power of Dataloft to attract people to you. But as Ian rightly says, and everyone else says, is that this is a long game. Now, you can either play hand to mouth with the short-term thing, but you'll be playing that until your cows come home. But if you play the long game, these guys, Brendan, Luke, Michelle, and Kevin, have slowly but surely grown their businesses. 2021 is going to be a tough market. Start planting the seeds now, so at least you have a fighting chance in 2021. So wave goodbye, everyone. Thank you for your time today, and we'll see you on. Thank you.
Bye.